Hey, how you doing? Okay, let's do it to it. We're going to be going over a game here. So, oh, wait a second. Let me see. Let me get to learning. Analyze. Okay. This is the World Youth Championship, round 10. And so, we've got to get a drink of water, then we'll get started. So, white played e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3. So white's going towards the either classical or the linear variation of the French. Okay, so black went into the linear. He can actually go into the classic with knight here, and then you can actually play at this point. If f7, then you have c5 and bishop e2, e3, bishop e7, knight comes out and castles, and then bishop e2, because you can't really push it here because white would want to cramp down. Hey, how you doing? White would want to cramp down the position with e4. So what we can do at this point is take, and then they could play knight takes, and after knight comes up, potentially win the knight with takes there and castles. Then c5 would actually be a pretty playable idea with the knight. So we're actually pretty good here. We actually could start a pretty big onslaught there. So we could actually play here, and then knight comes in and potentially plop a knight right into d5, which then the bishop would more likely play here. So then we plop a knight in, and then knight takes, pawn takes, and we have this kind of clump of pawns, but I think we'd be able to still hold. But that's more of a classical setup. The player as black played the linear, which is more of a theoretical line. They said it was their usual line. They liked this linear opening. Okay, bishop d3. This is a line that could be played more of a side line. The main line goes e5, c5, bishop here, takes, and then black usually plays knight e7, and then if queen to g4, queen g4, you could castle, and if bishop here, then you play knight g6, and you kind of clog up the position. And what you're preparing to do is to actually play f6 at the right moment, and then play pawn takes here, and potentially you're trying to get some counterplay via queen a5, attacking c3 with some checking ideas, and then potentially knight, and you can also get your bishop out via this way too, attacking that bishop. So there's a bunch of different lines that you can actually go down. They chose more of the side line, because this usually isn't really played as much, because that actually allows taking, potentially a kind of Steinitz variation of the French, because this knight's pinned. And sometimes what you can actually do is play c5 or f5 at this point. It kind of go towards more of a lateral setup for the bishop to be brought out and then potentially pushed onward after the knight comes in here at castles. When this pawn is here, then you can actually push onward, protecting once you get the knight out of the way. So there's a whole bunch of different lines. This is kind of an unusual one. I don't really know this one as well because it's so off lines. They usually don't play this way because it actually potentially would lose a pawn. The d4 pawn ends up becoming a vital weakness for black. It also traps in white's light square bishop, and with proper play you can take scope on d4, and oops, that's not the move. It'd be an interesting move, but that's not the move. Yeah, I got enough talk. We have to get into the meat of the subject. So knight c6. This is a line that could be played. It's kind of an unusual one. This actually isn't as good. You have really two different lines. You have pawn takes, which allows bishop to take, because the bishop already moved. So when the bishop got brought out, this is usually the time Simon Williams and the Grandmasters usually say to take. And then at this moment, then the knight potentially coming would be an idea, or potentially bishop. Bishop can't play yet because you'd lose a piece on g. So you could at this point give up your light dark squared bishop so that when he takes back, then you have a pretty interesting position. You can actually play knight here, oops, knight here, but really there's no points of entry. I'm trying to find a way to get, well, maybe we could play something like here, here, and then pocket our knight right there. Maybe this is a good idea. Maybe play a knight here at this point. And then if the bishop comes out, we can potentially lock down with c6. And then after knight comes, potentially f5. Then you have knight coming in, and you have this outpost that's readily available. Castles. Knight comes in. If bishop comes back to attack the knight, you then have b5. And your knight's pretty much cemented. They could trade and cause this fracturing of your pawns, but I really don't see too bad of a problem there. So it's playable, very theoretical though. So knight c6 was actually played. It kind of gives white a slight advantage. They have the flexibility of either playing e5 or taking. So surprisingly, they made a very dubious mistaking move here. Knight. Hold on, let me see. It's funny, they don't actually, they put knight c6. Hold on. Did I miss something? Hold on. Oh, my bad. Oh, that makes perfect sense why I missed a whole line. Yikesies. He took and took. I knew this didn't feel right. This was a wrong line. Now bishop d6. I knew there was something a little amiss there, because this did not remind me of a line that I've seen before. Now knight c6 has a lot of practical sense because of it's attacking the pawn. It's funny though, they did knight ge2. You don't need to do knight ge2. This knight is pinned, so the only knight that could move is actually knight e2. So it's just a notation thing that the youngster made a kind of slight inaccuracy on. Knight e7. Now that's the right move sequence. Castles and bishop to g4. Now pinning the knight. This the reason white back here didn't want to go knight to f3 was potentially bishop g4 is a pain in the drain, and also later on this could come under fire if the castles. This could come under fire with a lot of knight maneuvering, and also this pawn on d4 is now not protected. So the idea of knight e2, castles, and bishop g4 is actually to make this d4 pawn unprotected, because it's pinned to the queen, so that if knight takes d4 or knight takes d4, the queen would gladly be whipped off, taken off the board by a bishop on d1. So interesting play for sure. They're saying that potentially the youngster said knight castle is a3 is kind of a line. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and bishop g4 now is a playable line. f3 to block this. Bishop h5, and then he's trying to actually reroute his bishop. Knight f4 to attack the bishop. Bishop g6. Knight takes g6. H takes g6. White is slightly better here. It is slightly better by 0.5. 0.5 means it's slightly better. A one pawn is usually means you are better. And then winning is like 2 pawns, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I don't really know how the computers totally work with all that. Because some positions that looked like it's slightly an advantage, to me sometimes look like they're winning. So, and so that's you just got to be a good judge of the situation. F3, knight h. a3 again, bishop takes, pawn takes. So now there's an outpost on c4 that could be taken advantage of with knight here and then in there. So potentially knight here, knight there, and then bringing the knight here to guard potentially could be a playable idea. Okay, b takes, queen d7. Black is looking at potential castle queenside now. Rook b1, and then castle's queenside is actually was played here. Knight f4, bishop g6 is actually was played. It was a mistake. To get rid of the the bishop setup was a slight mistake. He played bishop g6. You could actually, I'm thinking, let me see here. I'm trying to think if there's a tactic. Because I know, I have noticed there's some sort of a tactic here. Because if this is a mistake here, there has to be a, let me see what potentially a better move would be. So it actually likes g6. I was looking at g3, but that gives a 2 pawn advantage to black because you actually lose the. So I think he's stuck with bishop g6. Knight takes, h takes, in which I have no idea why the youngster thought that that's bad. This is actually really good. You're the one with the attack on your opponent's king. Yeah, because then you have queen to d6. So white's going to have to dominate that. Let's see if he plays bishop g. Oh wow, he played knight takes. That is interesting. I want to see if they think our line's better. Yeah, our line is actually better. His line, well, f takes, so h takes g actually is an equal line. Wow, it's better. So that was right. He mistakenly played the third best move, which was knight takes g6. There's really no reason to have done that. He could actually now play knight f5, and I think it was just a youngster slip up. He'll hammer out all of his slight weaknesses eventually, but the whole idea from like Grandmaster Simon Williams is to get your rook, even in a London system type of setup. This is a good idea. And the position's closed, so semi-closed. And you can just lock it up. You can double up and go after h2 too. So I don't know why the youngster didn't open up that file. That's like, your rook's just sitting there. Why not give it life? You know, it's like opening up your artillery right onto the enemy, onto the castle. It's like having a Lord sent thing that the you move like an artillery, and all of a sudden it's perfectly placed, and you're like, huh, this is kind of strange. No, not if you've planned out right. We play knight takes here, so we need to promote this to the main line. Okay, knight takes f6. Bishop d2. Queen d6. You played queen. If black would have played this here, we're just going to show you what would happen if this. Now queen here is a tremendous attacking blow, because now you have knight here. You even have potentially doubling up of rooks. So that's kind of puzzling why he actually played queen d there. Now I guess maybe to get his rook over here, but maybe Harry the h-pawn might have been a better idea. If they're not going to open it up, try to use Harry to come up the board and disrupt a little bit of and cause a little bit of chaos on that side. Bishop d6 really doesn't make any sense to me. It's kind of like the youth kid didn't really know what plan. See, you have to get a plan. I think in his mind, this is developing his piece to the best square. It also, in theory, you can think of it. It does do one thing. The dark square bishop did want to go to f4, so now the queen dominates f4. So the b8 to h2 diagonal. So it does deprive this dark square bishop of a but actually the bishop could, if it wanted to, go to e1 and g3. So that's a playable idea. Bishop e1, bishop g3. So it's kind of interesting. I like these games of the young kids, because a lot of their mistakes we can actually learn from. It's really cool, because they have their as they say, fervor of an attack is inspiring in some situations, because they're the tigers of the next chess generation. And so that's why I go over some of these articles from the youth competitions, because some of those students are really those players are really talented, and so you can learn a lot of stuff. Even Jeremy Silman says you can learn something from anybody in chess, so that's a cool thing. Let's see here. Okay, takes bishop d2. They're saying that potentially queen e2 is actually a playable line here. Queen e2. Here I thought queen e2, but after rook d d to e8, it does not work. And rook h here also is a playable idea. So it doesn't actually work at this point. They're saying that let me see here. I gotta make sure I'm doing this here. I thought here. Okay. I think I think he was talking about here, and after rook h. This is a line that they were talking about. Rook h e8. That bishop to h6 is a playable line. But actually, I was wrong. Sorry about that. So this is right. Oops. This is the right idea. If rook slides over, bishop here. If rook takes, bishop takes, king takes, bishop takes here is a interesting line that he was talking about. Check. And king c8, and you would actually have to basically go in for, you can kind of do a thing, and then king c8, bishop b2, king b8, king c3, c6, king c8, and then bishop takes here, king takes, and rook bd2 to cover. An interesting for black. Hey. Okay. So that's actually an interesting line. You have to be on the lookout. That would be a good Joel Benjamin one, forcing chess moves. That's a cool combination right here with queen d2. This is our queen d2, and playing that. That's cool. That is cool. This right here. That's a nifty idea that the kid saw. Wow. That's cool. I have to keep that in mind if I play against the winner. That this line is actually queen e2 is a playable line. Wow. I learned something there. I'm not impressed that often. That's a pretty impressive move sequence that youngster played. Let me see here. What move are we on? 14. Okay. Bishop d. Let's see here. Bishop. Okay, there. Okay, queen c1. Rook d f. Rook d to e8. Okay, hold on. d8. Queen b2. Trying to go in for a knockout. Starting my attack. He played knight d5, which is actually a reactive move. This does slightly weaken black's position, and you got to be careful of this pin here. So b6 was actually the best move here. So we did find the best move. So queen b2, knight d8. Promote to the main variation. Promote. It's actually slightly dubious, because now one of your active pieces is now passive. c4 was actually a mistake by white played c4. D takes c4. Bishop takes c4. Knight f4, with a potential idea of maybe coming into one of these points here. King h1, exclam. He's making sure there's no checks with a potential queen type of setup like that. h5 was played by black. Here I thought for about an hour. That's why he says I'm thinking about the sack. I realized that it could only be right since the knight is protecting two pieces. So you should you should distract it. So what he's saying is that there's a piece sacrifice type of setup here that does bishop here actually work? Bishop to a6. I think that's what they were thinking about. Oh, so they were actually thinking about bishop takes f. Bishop takes f here. Now he takes f, and then queen comes crushing down there. King d7. Queen b5, king d8, queen f5 to knight e6, queen takes f, king c8, and bishop to b4. I'm thinking, let me see, b4, right? That can't be right. Oh, yikesies. I had the wrong pawn push. It's not a5. Yikes. I like that variation, so I'll just keep it. We'll promote this to the main line. Drat. My bad there. We have to now get everything rolling again. Let me see, where's the H? So we're at, okay, 19. H5, okay. Now this bishop move makes more sense. Knight takes there. Queen to b5 check. Oops, not king c8. I think king d8 is what was played, and queen f5 too. So knight e6, queen takes f7. King c8. Bishop b4. Now we got a now we're right on track. Queen c6. Trying to get some activity, but the black's king's way too exposed. All we gotta do is bring a rook over, rook e1, and this is starting to come under severe pressure. Rook d8. d5, queen h3, rook e8, rook bc1 with a push. King b7, and then c4. Now he's going to win a piece. Knight f4. C takes D. Who takes, potentially he could have played this. Yeah, you don't want to take. Oops. Yeah, we don't want to take there. You want to take here. And he's up. Yeah, you're down a whole rook. Yeah, so. Bishop and 2 pawns down. He actually resigned here. This is the main variation of the line. He resigned at this point. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Back on move 25, I want to go over this. Bishop takes d4 and rook fd1. And they're saying that this potentially, it's still losing for black. The position's lost. So, yeah, that was an interesting game to say the least. Let's see how we're doing on time. Perfect. Since we got done so quickly, I'm gonna probably do one more game. Let me get a excuse me. Let me get a that's too long of one. That was 64 moves. We don't want to do that. Oh, a 38 move one. This is against these are two 1000 level players. I want to see what they have in store. It leads to checkmate. So let's see if we can learn something from this. Excuse me. Okay, Doki. So e4, c5, knight f3, or knight c3, knight c6. So they're going for more of a, it's either a I think it's a Caro-Kann type of setup. f4, d6, knight f3, bishop g4 for a pin, bishop c4, kind of looking like an Italian game now. Knight f6, d3, and so now this bishop can get out. Knight d4, castles, knight takes check, g takes, and bishop d7. So now the king is weak, but can black actually exploit that? I'm not exactly sure. e5, d takes e, f takes e, and knight g8. So black may have weakened white's structure, but but white has more pawn pieces developed. Knight e4, bishop to e3. It's actually the best spot for it. Knight g5, bishop e6. It's like, yikes! He's losing a piece here. This was a mistake here. This was a blunder. But he's kind of forced to actually do that. So this actually was a losing move right here. What he probably should have played was h6, and then have played bishop to h3 would be actually a much stronger move at that point. So let's actually see what the most e6. So e6 is actually better, because then if knight here, it doesn't have as much teeth with this bishop. So the knight took. So now he's up material here. So queen c8, knight takes f8, king takes f8, bishop d3, queen c7 to attack there, f4 to kind of try to hold, g6, surprisingly this is a pretty strong move. Even if queen takes here, you have pawn takes check, and if the king tries to run over, you do have a queen f3 with the infiltration point here and here. So if he like takes back, because he's trying to mate himself, you do have this type of a setup, check. So you got to be careful with that. So probably not queen 8 f5, probably queen here, king comes up, and then bishop f4, and that blunts this this queen out of the phase. So the queen would have to go somewhere like here, trying to keep an eye on this, and then we just retreat. You can just retreat the bishop back if you'd like, and then you freed up all this attack. Let's see here. What are we missing here? Okay, 18. So we have to actually get to rook d8. Oh, sorry. Queen d2, rook d8. So we got to promote this to the main line. Okay, rook d8. Queen c3. Trying to take scope if pawn push, but then the knight can just come in. So really there is a double attack, so potentially b6 has to be played. And it was played, so b4 to undermine that. Rook c8, so that if takes, you can actually take, and it's protected. So b takes c, b takes c, probably d4 at this point would be playable. Oh, he played rook a. He played rook a to b. That does control a open file, but I like just hammering home. And if he pushes here, you do have this type of a setup now with your huge expansion in the center. So you always have to be on the lookout for, and this does take over the open file, so it's not that it's a bad move. a6, I have no idea what that was for. I guess so that they can push this pawn. I think that he was concerned if you pushed here, takes here, queen takes, rook takes, that you would win here. But then rook takes there, and I don't know. That's kind of peculiar that you're afraid of losing a pawn, which white's king is really exposed. I would try to go for the king with a pretty good attack. King d2. Now white is reacting to black's threat. They want to hold on to this pawn. I'm thinking that still d4 is a playable move here. I like d4. And even if that, now you still have this set up with an attack. This is incredibly strong. So c4, f5. Now that's actually not I like that move. I actually do like this move. This is really an aggressive move. Great job for the what level? The 1060 on that. It's a powerhouse move right there. King e8, f6. f6 is interesting. E takes f, e takes f. Now there's a threat of a winning material here. King d7. Wow, black's on the run. Rook fb1. Now they're trying to pick up the queen. Queen d8. And now the rook's going to start coming right in. Just a matter of time before mate. c2. Queen d4. Probably king c8. Oh, king e8. King c8 I think would lose though to a mate. I'm mistaken there, sorry. That leads to an actual mate, so it's a good thing they didn't see that. That's good on their part. Promote. You gotta take your time. And now he wins a piece. King e7. I think I probably would have neutralized the queen here. After king takes, then I pushed onward and queened. I think black missed the win here. This is actually the win here. There's no way to stop the mate from coming to pass now, because then you have something like that. Well, maybe that's not the best. Maybe check. Nope, still mate 4. So let me see, what is the mate 4 line? Oh, bishop f. Okay, bishop f here. If rook takes, queen comes in here. That's mate 3. Queen c8. Takes. King takes. And that's mate. Okay. He actually took here. He missed the mate. It's still playable and winning. It's mate 6 at this point, though. Oh, they did. Oh, he did take it. Abi. Nice. He did take it. King takes D. Queen. King D7. Queen F6. F7. King D6. Queen takes check. King E6. He missed, I think, mate 2 here. Think of which one is mate 2. Yeah, rook B. Yeah, right here. And then when he comes up, you can actually mate him. The mate 2 is this here. And king D5, and then you have queen C5, D5's mate, or D6 is mate 2. What did he play? Oh, rook B to D6 check. King F5. Rook C1 or rook F1. So there's mate 1 here. Queen F4. King here. Queen F4, he played king here, and then Queen G3 as mate. Okay, let's work on some of our simple puzzle mates now. Well, we'll get some of those simple checkmates up and rolling. Let me see here. Yeah. Thinking, did we already get past? Yeah, we got past this. 24. We did pawn pushes. Yep. So we did that. Okay. All right. Now we should be good now. Okay. All right. Let's get everything set up. Hold on. Let me get a drink of my tea, and we'll get started. Set it up. Board editor. Alright, now this is the interactive part of our stream. Sorry for a second there. Couldn't think of the word. I knew what I wanted to say, but the word escaped me for a second. White to move. White to move. White to move. Rook takes, yep, rook takes A1. Nice. Alright, board editing time again. see, king here, king here, queen here, and rook. White to move. What book am I using? Oh, chess. This right here. Chess Camp. A Simple Checkmates. It's by Igor Chernik. It's a pretty cool one. They're just yep. Think about that. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? They give you a lot of these, and then they throw you a side one. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I know they throw those in there. Yeah, it's a curve one every once in a while. They test to see, because otherwise you get into a rhythm, and they want to get you out of that and get you back in, out of that, back in. It's kind of like that. I like that, how they actually do it, because they don't let you be complacent, and that's always a good thing. All right, wait to move. Oh yes. He's got some really cool ones. He's got, well, once we get done with this book, we'll go into the mate and twos. Those are pretty cool. And then he came out with another 2 books. I want to purchase those. I think I'm going to try to see if I can't get those purchased maybe in a couple months or so, or this month maybe. Because I really like the books that he plays. I have a lot of chess books already, but you know what? What's a 1 or 2 more, right? Okay, we got to get this set up right. Oops. King F1. Yep, you did that right. Yeah, I got to go to board editor. Wait to move. Yeah. Yep, rook d8 is in fact mate. It's kind of funny. Many chess players probably be thinking, "Why are you doing mate once?" A lot of games have been either lost or a draw has arisen because they've missed a mate and one. So I'm like, wow. If I don't want to lose a game because I missed a mate and one checkmate. So it's good to go over the book. Okay, mate or white to move. This is a little more difficult of a one. I'll see if you can see it. Yeah, there we go. It's a lateral mate, lateral checkmate. White to move. D8. Yes, that is great. Great job. Now we have to get rid of this, and we get a knight now. We get to use some knight moves. White to move. Oh, it has been? Oh, that's good. Oh yeah, I we do have that one. I have this one too. That's Pogar. Yeah, I like. I've gone through that. That's a really good checkmating book. He has a really good endgame one too that you can learn a lot of endgame from. He had his daughters go through hundreds of puzzles a day to get their tactical focus or eye or Hawkeye position. Yeah, perfect. That's right. So he does like about a couple hundred mate and ones. Then he does like about a couple hundred mate twos, and then he goes mate threes, and I think he goes all the way to mate four. I'm thinking I have to do that. Yeah, no, it's actually in his book. In his book, there at the very end, I think it's like it's either 4,000 something that he's there. Yeah, he does. He has a whole section on endgame, how to save end games and how to win end games on there, and he gives you puzzles on there. I figure if his daughters became, yeah, yeah, it's a pretty fun one to go over. Yeah, I found that a couple of them had a couple different ways to mate, so you could actually set up for yourself a couple different mating things there. I really like his the framework of uh, the Pogar's father's setup. Really good. Okay, it's white to move here. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's very user friendly. White to move. Yep, there you go. Nice. We'll do two more, and then we'll or three more because we got to finish up the 2 pages. We'll do 2 pages a night, and then we'll get into positional play. Or I think what's it called? Oh, exploiting small advantages in chess positions. We'll get into that one. White to move. Yeah. Yeah, good job on spotting that. I'm glad you didn't say rook h1 because then the king actually has a spot to run to. So you got to be careful when you deal with checks in the book that it's the correct check because this is an incorrect check and this one is the correct check here. So great job on finding that. So two more. Two more. All right. Oops, I have to put here. Here. Ah, okay. White to move. B8. Yep, B8 is mate. That's right. And that is great. A. Alrighty. Let's do it to it. One more. One more. White to move. And we will see if Rook H2. Correct, yes. Great work. Great job. Great job. Okay, now this is the kind of intensive study. I know it's slightly, some would think it's boring, but I don't think that study is ever boring. So, let's see here. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. Yeah, this is the one right here. The white was come on. Work with me here. There we go. Let me make sure I have that. There we go. That's the right spelling. This is the game. That's where it was played. So an unusual in the end game, we're going to set this up. And I'll actually set it up first, then I'll read to you what the position is. Oh, I should have kept the knight. There was a knight. Okay, then move the king back here. So queen here. Where's the queen for queen, and then a bishop. Oops, wrong bishop color. Now I got to do the white pawns. I mean black pawns. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Whose turn is it to move? White. Okay. This so white to move. An unusual. Well, it says white to move. Yeah, that's right. And usually the end game of a queen and knight are stronger than a queen and bishop, thanks to their greater maneuverability. But in this example, white has a slight advantage due to the centralized space of his pieces and his kingside pawn majority. His plan now includes advancing his g-pawn and h-pawn so as to restrict all further mobilization of his opponent's pieces. So, what would be a exclam move here for white? This is. I'll give you a second to. Not a second. I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it, because you're gonna have to. You get in these endgame positions where you're slightly better, and how do you, like a grandmaster would, or an expert player, how would you take it and basically emphasize it to make it even more? And if you have a line that you want to go over, and you thought about a line for a little bit, you could put that line in, and you can even, if you want to, add a little bit of typing words to it if you want, like, the reason I played e5 was because I want to restrict this, or something like that. I'll be right back. I'll give you like a minute or two to look at the puzzle. You're white. Find the exclam move for white. I'll be right back. Hey. Oh, c5, c4. That does have some merit to it. It's a good idea about trying to restrict, and then queen c2, trying to restrict with a check. Not a bad idea. So I would say that that'd be probably an exclam move too. So I'll throw out some moves. That's not a bad idea. Okay, which one of those would you say is an exclam move? I threw you out. There's only one that's an exclam move in the lot. And the whole idea of this positional advantage that white gets is about cramping black. This is all about cramping black. What does an exclam mean? Oh, an exclam is actually one exclam. This is means excellent move, and this means brilliant move. And then this here is dubious, and this means that means interesting. That move means interesting. So you have your one that's excellent. Second one's brilliant. The third one means dubious, and then the fourth one means an interesting move. Not a problem. Anything to help. That's the whole point. I'll give you one more minute to choose which one would be an exclam, and then we'll do a couple moves to go through it, and then I'll ask you another question or two after maybe like 3 moves, because then you'll get to see the play of the grandmasters. I believe these are grandmasters. I'm not exactly sure. It doesn't show if they're grandmasters or not. Okay. So one is c4, one is g4. So play OK 27. Anything would be a guess. Actually, Lord's Courage actually has the right idea, because g4 does one thing. It restricts the king side of white. It's an exclam move. Then queen would go to e7, queen e7, to try to infiltrate in and get the knight's development. This knight is kind of like really awkwardly placed at this moment. Knight and queen are usually better in an endgame, because knights can actually touch all the colors of the squares. So it can touch all these squares. Where a bishop is stuck on one color. So king g2. This is so that the king can potentially be immobilized into the fight as well. And then queen e6, this is an exclam move. A sensible tactic. Black tries to set up a defense on white's key squares, which is black wants to get the potential knight here, and then maybe something to do with and try to attack these two pawns here. You know, there's a lot of play with the knight. A4 is actually played by white to restrict the king side, the queen side, and then D5, and this is another exclam setup because this is really good now because D5 does a couple things. It restricts, it puts a pawn on the opposite color of white's bishop, so now there's only 2 pawns that are on dark squares, not 3. And now the knight has the opportunity to go to D6 now. It gives the knight another spot to go to. So it's a really good move. H4 by white, and knight D6 is playable. King H3, knight to E4, and then queen to F4 here. With a queen on the with queens on the board, it is difficult for white to count on and realize his basically minimum advantage. Yeah, you know what? If you get a good, as they say, gut feeling on a move, sometimes you're right. But to have the queens on the board, they were saying that his even though he has a very small advantage, white really can't emphasize it because black has a queen too. And how are you going to basically take advantage of that? It's going to be hard to get this. You could check potentially. And so his main trump is his passed pawn on the king side, which can be used most effectively in a minor piece ending. So it can't really be effective when you have queens on the board because this queen can barricade it and then cause the knight to come over and attack it. So now I'm going to I actually have to move for black. Okay, so D6 was played. The exchange of queens is forced since with his last move white has created some pretty dangerous threats. One threat is queen to the reason the exchange has to be taken. Black's afraid of queen h6 and potentially the queen to b8. So to stop those threats, the queen wants to trade off. So does black want to trade though? So you have to ask yourself, does black want to trade into a minor piece endgame where white's going to have an advantage because of his passed pawn? I'll throw out some moves for you. For white, queen takes d6, queen h6, let's see here, c3 or h5. Which one of these moves would go along with white's plan? You have to think of what is white planning here and what is the correct move for white. What is white's goal? And does the exchange help white or does the exchange hurt white? So you have to ask, is it better for queen h6? Is it better for c3 to support the bishop? Is h5 with creating the pass pawn now a good idea? You have to ask yourself what is best. Of course, c3 isn't a good move. I should have added something else. I'll change c3 and h5 into something else. The queen's hanging, so I'll have it be queen e3. So I'll have queen e3, e3, and then let me see, queen f3. There we go. Queen f3. There we go. Which queen f3? What is your what is the idea behind queen to f3? What is your plan? Because each move has a kind of idea plan based around it. What would be your plan when you play f3? What are you thinking about, and what direction do you want to push the game? Because you have to think. What is it? Oh, protect g3. Okay. Yeah. That makes, you know what? Your move, play okay 2-7-4 is not a bad move. It's just it's kind of a slightly reactive move, and it's also doing one thing. It's not bad though. It's believing black's threat. Like Dolores Courage said, queen takes d6. Because if h6, then queen g3 checkmate that is true. Queen f3 does guard checkmate, but what you have to always think about is, am I going along with my opponent's plan, or am I still directing my plan? See, if I'm going along with my opponent's plan, then my opponent is the one who's directing the game. And queen takes d6 is now you're taking, as white, you're taking the initiative. You are the one who is, and you're correct with queen takes d6. You're saying to black, you're not going to push me around anymore. Now I have the ability to, once you play knight takes, I can play h5 and create my own pass pawn. And as we know on the endgame, even if all the pawns got traded off, all these pawns got traded off. Sorry. The color of the queening square is the right color. So even if that happened, yeah, exactly right. You spotted white's advantage, the queening square. So any endgame is going to benefit white if he can get a pawn here, because the king won't be able to get there. If the knight's all the way over here and we can get a pawn to h7, this bishop will escort it home. So you have to always look at those slight, that's why we're going over exploiting small advantages, because those small changes in the position, because the queens are gone now, this this h8 square becomes more of a tantalizing morsel for white, because the queens would be able to cover this. Black's queen would have been able to cover a h8 because it has the power of a rook and a bishop. So knight takes, king g3, and then knight to c4. Knight c4, trying to somehow get his knight mobilized, but this bishop does a really good job of kind of neutralizing a lot of black's ideas. See, black can't play his king to e6. Wait a second, let me see here. Hold on. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, e6, right, right here. He would like to, but he can't at this moment, because what would happen is the pawn would come up the board. So they're talking about the queen. So king f7, you would think would be a good move here, but it's actually not a good move. The pawn, king f4, queen e6, and then king g5 is a playable move here. Yeah, it's actually based on, he's got to be careful that he doesn't get forked. And then he has the potential for making a breakthrough with his pawns in this line here. King f7, and h6 is a playable king h6 with the idea of making a passed g pawn, maybe, if he wants that to happen. And then h7 is actually a playable idea to constantly keep pushing back. And h5, he could play h5 too, but black wants to keep his king in the queening area as much as he can. He wants to now play with his knight. Yeah, the forks are always a pain in the drain. Let's see here. Okay, perfect. I'll get to move 18 here, and then I'll propose another move sequence for you to choose from. Let's see, 8 here. So 8. Okay, king f4, a6. He wants to try to create his own pass pawn. Okay, 6, king g5, king h7. White must not allow the king to reach h. Yeah. Yeah. That's the reason to hold there. The knight covers b4. That's right. Yeah. That he has to stop white from not getting to h6. So it's vital to do that. So king f6, b5, a takes b, a takes b, and then king to e6, trying to go after this weak pawn here. b4, king takes d5, a, and now he's trying to win this pawn and prove, yeah. There's c4, b takes c, bishop takes c. So knight b5 and bishop e3, e5. At this point here with bishop e5, the knight is in danger. It must urgently basically escape with all of its might. He doesn't want to if you're two squares away like this, your bishop dominates the knight. These are the squares that the knight can go to, and the bishop guards those. So the knight's almost trapped. Knight to a3 is the only move that is potentially saving the knight. And at this point, you are white. What is the exclam move? And I'll throw out a couple moves. Which one of those four is the correct move sequence? Which one gets this mark here? Which one of those gets that mark? Oh, knight a5. It actually you get trapped. Your knight actually will get trapped. I think it's still playable, but you want to stay as far away from the king as you can. And I think he wants to, with this line, come in like this. Stay close to the pawns too, to kind of cause a little bit of panic with the pawns. G5. What's your idea behind pawn to G5? What's your plan? Coming down. Well, in theory, you're right, that does work. But there's the only problem is the king can't really come down anyways. So if he did try to come down, the bishop could actually check on f4. So white's almost in Zugzwang. And his knight's offside, basically off in exploring a whole nother world, while the king needs him back at the castle. He's out exploring new territory for the kingdom, but that's not what the king needs at the moment. He needs his knight back there. So what's your idea behind king to e6? Because I'm gonna constantly ask those things, because in Jeremy Silman's The Amateur's Mind, he asks his students are the basically the chess players that he teaches through his books. Why did the opponent do this? And then he gives his he has you try to answer it first, and then he gives his reasoning for it. Ah, yes, that is a good reasoning. The reason that this is a good move is because the knight, like what we just talked about, the knight is totally offside, doing nothing. As quoted from Backyard Chess Professor, the knight is out, riding around in the countryside. But what you want to do, why King E6 is a great move, is you're trying to get as close to the queen square and the pawn as you can, so that when you break through, you'll be able to get your pawn going. That's a good one too. That's a good one too. I didn't think of that one. I always have it be like a knight on a horse, going into different, when it's off this far over here. I always think of it trying to explore new land, but it's actually needed back at home base. So you have a rebellious knight every once in a while that wants to find new territory, but there is no new territory. This is the side of the board. You need to come back to the center. And then it ends up sometimes getting trapped because of its too much curiosity. Okay. Right. You're exactly right. This is what they said. The knight can't be caught, but it is driven to the edge of the board, and the white king acquires max activity by playing king to e7, e6. The knight's going to be a long time getting back to the fray. King c4, the knight's like, I better get back. So he's like, I better hurry back. My king is doing the trumpet, as in Helm's Deep, the horn that's blown in the deep. That. So the king's lighting all the flares like in Minas Tirith and blowing the trumpet and all this stuff, trying to get the knight to realize, we need you back home. I'm all alone here. Yes, I can take on these squares here, but it'd be nice if I had a second hand to come and help. So the knight's finally hearing the call and seeing all the distress fires, and realizing, uh-oh, I better get back. But sometimes it's a little too late in that scenario. Bishop d4 is actually a mistake here. Black has a pretty draw. This actually would be a really nice draw here. Knight d2, and I'll show you it. King f7, knight f3, yeah, bishop f6, and g5. Surprisingly, h takes g, and e5 is actually stalemate. And if he tries to move, he's just gonna win the pawn. So yeah. So that's actually a losing idea. So if he actually plays this, it's stalemate, because this is covered, that's covered, that's covered, that's covered, and it's black to move. Black to move. Yeah, bishop f4 is it was actually the move. So knight b2, the knight's trying his darndest to find a path back. All the paths are blocked by the sniper, and he senses that the sniper is out basically for him, so he has to back off just a little bit to get there. Yeah. King f7 now. Knight d3, and finally the knight finally spots the sniper. It says, "I see you," and then the guy's like, "I better run." So now the bishop's got to run, and it actually runs to a not so good spot. It runs to a mistake spot, and it's like, "I'm safe." No, you're not, my friend. That was a mistake. What he should have actually played here was bishop g4, g3, and tried to dominate the knight. This dominates the knight. This would have actually been a better spot to hide at, but he kind of was a little too scared and went a little too far away, and he thinks he's going to dominate the knight this way, which the knight really doesn't care about that. All it wants to do is wreak havoc on these two pawns. This here would have stopped the knight from wreaking havoc. Yeah, this right here would have stopped the knight from wreaking havoc, but he didn't play the correct move. The knight wouldn't have been able to go to f2, but in this line here, the knight has the prospect to go to f2 and potentially even into h3. And now there's a lot of problems for black. Yeah. So he missed out on that opportunity. This would g3 would have allowed him to put into effect the basic winning mechanics. This move here, bishop g3, puts in the basic winning mechanics of stopping the knight from getting close to his two soldiers. These soldiers are really important. This bishop needs to protect them. You know what I mean? The bishop has a great responsibility to his two soldiers. He needs to make sure that no soldiers get too close. How do you know if the bishop's better? Well, usually bishops, Jeremy Silman would say, we're going to be going over endgame, where bishops are better when there's passed pawns. Bishops are much better at passed pawns. When it comes to minor pieces, and bishops also, and like when it's the same color as the queen's square, that's also a possible setup. Also, if there's pawns on both sides of the board, like if there was pawns over here and pawns over here, a bishop would be wonderful because they have the power when they're right here to go like this. They can control in one fell move. They can control all these squares here. Where a knight is, where a knight can only move to these squares, and it takes them almost forever to get to one side of the board. It takes like 2 to 3 moves to get from one side of the board to the other, where it would take the bishop 1 move. So if pawns are on both sides, there is a the reason this move is a vital move and not bishop d6 is because knights are better. Knights are much better when pawns are on one side of the board. Jeremy Silman has an endgame section on that we'll basically be going over as well. So F, let me see here. Yeah, this would actually stop the knight from going to F2. That's what they're saying. Bishop G3 is actually a winning move. King H6 is forced because you can't move the knight. And then King F6. Now you have the king in a, and this is a Sklam move, a Zugzwang position. King H7. And now you can go G5. And the knight has no squares to go to but to retreat. And when the knight retreats out this way, somewhere around here, the breakthrough will actually start with H5. And yeah, let me see here, G5. Okay, if HR, he says, if rather than if he goes here, let me see, here, if the knight moves, that's right, if the knight goes back here, there is a you have to be careful that you don't stalemate the king or allow the king to come in here and barricade off this. So you have to play G5 to stop him. The king could actually have, if you had played this a little too like here and then you played here, the king could actually come in to H5 and then it's a menace now. This is basically a draw. It's a draw for white, for black, because there's no way to get his backward pawn exchanged off for the G6, and this knight will eventually decoy this bishop away or this king away, and potentially you can trade off maybe the knight for this bishop and pawn or something. There's certain ways to actually draw. G5 though is actually a winning move here. There's also instead of G5 you can play bishop to D6 here, and now this move is an Sklam move, because even if he plays here you have G5 and he's then dominated again. R, if he plays here you have H5. And there's a lot of different move sequences that potentially could happen after that. Let me see, so king F6, H, trying to, let me see. Okay, he's saying that, yeah, I think this is where the line stops. There's a second line. This is actually where it's winning for white now. The king has to go up the board. Our move is knight, and either way he's losing, because what you can do is if he moves his knight, you can eventually almost you can slowly trap this knight with the bishop. So bishop D6. Okay, this was a mistake, but black blundered it away too by playing the mistake g5. The interesting thing was the bishop blundered again and played bishop g3. It's like, for real, just push the pawn or take it or something. H takes g, and then bishop d6. H3 was actually a losing move. Can you see the move that wins for white? Can you? Which I'll put the move out. I think the bishop gets trapped. We'll take a look at that. Oh, not f5. Sorry about that. Hold on. I have to put bishop f8. Push the wrong one. Out of those ones, what is the winning move? There's only one move that wins. You are correct. That is right. G5 is the move, and black resigned here. They're saying that the best move here, surprisingly, is King H. We're just going to go over what the best move for black was. King H, H6, Bishop King F8, then H F2, G5. H5, yeah. Restrict, yep. And then G6, King G4, Knight F7, or King F7, and then H6. The mistake towards the finish by both sides can be explored only by taking them apart like fragments and analyzing each move as a what is better about it and what is worse. So if you make a mistake, take apart what led your thought pattern to that mistake, and you can then find out what small fragment in your thinking line is affecting your flow of proper analysis. We'll do a endgame now. So congratulations on all that. That's great. Great work there. It was a little tough. I know, but trust me, in the end, it's unnecessary. There is this. We're doing the. Oops, I have to. Come on, clear the board. Clear the board. King here. Okay. We're doing a queen and pawn on the 6th. This is what Jeremy Silman says. There's no contest, especially if the stronger king who has support of the queen and the king in this is close enough to the pawn. However, if the white king is on the other side, on the other side of the universe, as he says, the queen can beat the king and the pawn. Occasionally, if the pawn's on the 7th, there's two ways. The queen can land on the queen's square, since the pawn then has no chance of promoting. The vacant king can calmly walk away to the basically an area and eventually get checkmated. The queen forces the black king to step in front of the pawn, and since the pawn can't move for a moment, the white king can take one step closer to the pawn's position. This will be repeated until the white king joins the fight in the battle. So there's a way of doing it, and he'll actually show you here how, even though a pawn's this far down the board, how you can actually still win it. White ends things quickly by permanently stopping black's pawn in its tracks by playing queen to a5 check, king d3, queen e1, and now there's no way for the pawn to ever be promoted. King e2, or e2, king c6, and black can't prevent white from marching towards the pawn. So king e3, king c5, or not d5, c5, to restrict the king. King d3, king d5, opposition, king e3, king c4. Now we're trying to push the king to f3, king f3, king d3. Now he's close enough. You got to be careful you don't stalemate your opponent too. And the pawn is lost at this point, so this is a lost game for black. Yeah, the rook often provide this. Now we're going to be looking at a rook and a rook pawn here. So it's white to move. Okay. Have fun at school. Because school's always fun. You know what? It's school is always fun. Rook pawns often prove the exception to the variation to the general rule. In this case, the white doesn't want the pawn to get to the 7th rank. We'll discuss that in a moment. But he also can't get his queen to h1, which would allow white to win. So white can't get his queen to h1, and black doesn't want the pawn to get to h2, because then that can actually be restricted. So I'll show you king h1. We have to go queen g5, king h2. King h2 blocks the pawn. Actually, it's h1. Blocks the pawn. It also allows white to instantly win by queen g4. Hold on. Did I oops, sorry about that. I checked the wrong spot. Right here. Oops. Now again, I missed mouse click on my part. If king here, this actually wins by queen g4, because the king has to give way and then you take. So the only move that the king can actually do is king to h1. Yeah, so the 6th, so after king h1, white could continue with basically continues with d5 check to attack, king g1, queen d4 check, king h1, king e4 check, king g1, king g4 check, king h2, and now the king just moves and king has to go h1, and queen takes when the game is all over. Now this is an exception to the rule. You have to. It's kind of interesting. This one here is really an interesting position. This move, this is it says a kind of an advanced for the 1400 and above, but he says that this is actually a win for white. It looks like black could actually draw this game, but black can't draw this game. And him and his friend, he says, I know you I can draw this game. He says, are you sure? And so they play it out, him and Jeremy Silman, when Jeremy Silman was like 14 or 15. So first you have to check with b6, b4, king d1, queen d4, and then king c2, queen e3 exclam, and then king d1, and then queen to d3, and he goes king e1. And now that this is a key move, you want to force your opponent's king in front of the pawn, then you can bring your king one step closer, b7. Now we have to continue the idea of king f2. Now queen d2 to pin the pawn, because you have to remember this sequence, these move sequences. We pin the pawn, king f1, and then queen f4 check, king f4, king g2, queen e3 check exclam, king f1, queen f3 check, king e1. Now he's in front of the pawn, so we march our king one step closer, c6, king d2, queen f2 pin, king d1, queen d4 check, if king c2, queen e3, king d1, and then queen to d3. He has to go in front of the pawn again, king e1. Now king could walk one step closer in, king f2, king d2, queen d2 pins, king f1, queen f4, king g2, and queen e3 exclam again. King has to go to f1, and then let's see, I have to make sure I have this right. What move are we on? 18. King f1. Oh, queen e2. That's right. I just want to keep and then king e1, king d4. Now things end quickly since the king is in striking range. King d2, queen d4 or d3, king e1, and then king can actually go to e3 here. King f1, queen takes e2, king g1, and then king f3, and king h1, and then you can actually checkmate on g2. And I think we'll probably call it there at this move here. We'll go through it one more time. Okay, first of all, this may look like a draw, but it's not, so don't fret. Queen b4, you attack with d, king c2, you do the exclam move, queen e3. Vital to remember this pattern. King d1, queen d3, he walks in front. Now you move the king close, one step closer. f2, we pin on d2, king f1, queen f4 check, king g2, queen to e3 exclam, king f1, queen f3, king e1. Now we move the king one step closer, king d2, queen f2. We pin the king, the pawn to the king, king d1, queen at d4, king c2, queen e3 exclam, king d1, queen e4, or e3, check, king e1. He's in front of the pawn now. We bring the king one step closer. King f2, we have to do it one more time. Queen d2 pins, king f1, queen f4 check, king g2, queen e3 exclam, king f1, queen f3 check, king e1, and then king d2. Now we're close enough so we can finish him off. King d, now the king and queen can support each other, so check, king goes back, king comes in, f1, takes, king moves, and then mate. So I just want to go over that one last time. Okay, now we'll end there. Do you have any questions? Have any questions before I log? Yeah. Okay. Okay, then you know what? Great job on all the work. It was a lot of work, I know, but you're doing great. So keep up the good work. Okay. Well, I wanted to thank you all for logging on, participating. It was a lot of work, but I got to tell you, it's truly going to pay off, my friends, when you sit down and study. I meant study when you sit down at the board and you've applied what you have studied to the chess at hand, the position. You'll be able now to, as white, even though your opponent gets a pawn to the 7th, we have to explore that there is actually a draw. Certain pawns, even though they're on the 7th, that look like they're winning. There's another section we're going to go over tomorrow, and there's a way to actually draw for black when it's, I believe it's a knight pawn. One second, let me see. No, it's a bit. I think it's, if it's a bishop pawn, it's a drawn position too. But the central pawns you can win with. But that's for another time. But you know what? Trust me, you're doing great. And what we have to do is remember that, like what Yasser Seirawan says, every long journey begins with one small step. We can apply Bruce Lee's idea too, though, of knowing is not enough. You must apply. So we're going to take what we know. It's not just enough to know this, but we have to apply it to the board at hand. And willing is not enough. You must do. So we have to sit down, be willing to sit down at the chessboard across from our opponent and risk playing. And you know what? I remember what Levon says: if you don't risk, you can't drink champagne. I don't drink champagne, but that was a phrase that he told Yasser, Jennifer, and Maurice at one of the tournaments that he was at. He says that, and they all chuckled at that. It's kind of funny. It goes back to the if you don't risk, how can you get better? Basically, that's what Levon was saying in that statement. If you don't risk, how can you get better? Like when you, my friends, risk by putting out a with those four moves. When you risk and put out there, and it's okay that it's right or wrong or whatever it is, and you're learning from it. That's really good, because you're then focusing down on the problem at hand, and you're learning. Your brain is actually assimilating what you're doing. Risking is a very scary thing. That's why there's a lot of chess players who are teachers and they don't pursue the chess career, because it's not an easy career to go down. Trust me, it's hard, it's tough. But in the end, when you're able to teach and share with others and leave behind a legacy of knowledge, and then the ones that you leave behind will teach the knowledge that you have, will teach the next generation, and so your legacy lives on through, like Jeremy Silman's books, and Horowitz and Reinfeld's books. Even though they've gone on to be with the Lord, their books still have brought joy and great learning to all generations, not just Bobby Fischer's generation and Boris Spassky, but even the generation to this day that people can enjoy their books. So leaving a book or a recording or something for the next generation is a blessing. But like what Bruce Lee says, he feared not the man who has practiced 10,000 individual kicks, but he feared the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once. I mean, one kick 10,000 times. Because if you practice a lot of different openings, but you don't hone down on one opening, you have a lot of expertise in a lot of different openings, but you don't have mastery of that. And mastery is very important when you find out if you're a positional player or an attacking player. But like what Tango and with Tom Thumb Thumb, he said that treasure your victories and learn from your losses, and remember that mistakes do not define you. It's how you handle the mistake that defines you. And like E. Nightingale, we become what we think about. So if you think like they even have it in our kids' cartoons, the little engine that could. Rusty talked to the little engine, even though she was smaller than the other ones. Her desire to be a hauler to the real world of toys was so great that she talked to Rusty, he was like one of the old trains. And he gave her some really good advice. He says, if you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. Either way, you're right. So if you think you can learn chess, and that they put a kind of a cap on it that only the young kids have that ability, that's not true. Adults have that potential. We just have to break a lot of our bad habits of we have to stay focused on chess and the learning process, and we have to be okay, put aside our ego and pride, and actually, if even though we know endgame okay, to learn from somebody else. Kids don't have that ego or pride issue. They haven't been taught that yet in society yet. So they're willing, and they're like a sponge, and they absorb everything that they're taught because it interests them. So we have to get an interest in chess and a love in chess that only the Lord can direct you, my friends, into. But in the end, you know what? We have to do a Chess Cruncher motto of don't give up, get up. And that's the whole thing. And you know what? It doesn't matter when you start chess. Chess can help in all areas of your field. If you're into finances, legal, all different types of stuff. It's the thinking process. And that's why Gary's book of Life Imitates Chess is truly a right on. But you know what? When it comes down to that, we are studying and most are playing. Excuse me. You have to be okay with when somebody comes over and asks what you're doing. You have to say, you always got this approval from Chess Cruncher to use the I'm a Chess Cruncher thing like Tigger. What do Chess Crunchers do? A Chess Cruncher hangs up their coat, hangs up their hat, sits down and studies when most won't. A Chess Cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And just keep that in mind. You can always, if you don't know what to say when you're studying and most of your friends are playing and doing other stuff, you can always do that one. And you have approval from your friendly Chess Cruncher to actually use that. So never feel afraid to do that, and never feel ashamed to study when most are playing, because you're taking the initiative to make a greater and use the talent that the Lord's given you, and that's nothing ever to be ashamed of. So, and I'll leave you with that. And as Wesley So says, for the Lord Jesus, and as I say, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, evening, and Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow, and we'll keep pushing forward. We'll learn how certain pawns on the sevenths are draws, even though they seem like they can be won. So we'll even learn even deeper into our endgame pawn and queen understanding. Great job, Go Team Chess Cruncher. Keep up the good work, and always, always strive for greater and greater things to honor the Lord. Bye bye. Be blessed.